Welcome to Books for Success. Today, we're unraveling the insights from Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer. Have you ever thought about becoming a vegetarian or even vegan? Maybe you wondered how meat production is sustained nowadays? Eating Animals is an extensive research piece about factory farming conducted by Jonathan Safran Foer, a best-selling American author who also wrote Everything is Illuminated, which was acknowledged as a Book of the Year by the Los Angeles Times. Vegetarianism is a complex lifestyle that requires commitment and a clear understanding of why a person wants to avoid eating meat. This book provides numerous insights into the culture of meat consumption. It helps to comprehend why more and more people become vegetarians and how modern farmers treat animals. Shocking, disturbing, and raising concerns, Eating Animals transforms us into people who make their choices consciously. Are you ready to face animals' reality without any sugarcoating? If you find our content valuable, like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Don't be shy about dropping your book suggestions for us to summarize. Let's grow and succeed together. Grandmother's Chicken and Author's Vegetarianism. The author's relationship with food was established by his family members, especially by his grandmother. She used to cook only one meal, chicken with carrots, but as kids, Jonathan and his brother Frank thought she was the greatest chef in the world. She survived World War II, and her attitude toward food was nothing like in the modern world. For Foer's grandmother, unhealthy products didn't exist. She thought the fatter the children, the healthier they were, and even insisted that they drank Coca-Cola. Food was about dread, religion, and love for her. There was a time when the Foer brothers were having dinner with their vegetarian babysitter. They asked why she didn't eat the chicken served that day. She replied that she didn't want to hurt any living being. That's when the author realized that a chicken could feel pain like a human. He became a vegetarian for a few years, but slowly this mindset faded away. He ended up pretending that he was a vegetarian at school while consuming meat at home. He continued eating meat in college, and the reason was that it tasted great to him. When Foer met his future wife, they had one core common point. They were both caught in a loop of being vegetarians but ending up eating meat. After getting married, they made a promise to be vegetarians and, again, they couldn't do it. But when Foer's son was born, he realized that he had a chance to make a difference, at least for this little person. When we grow up, our parents teach us the rules of eating food. For example, we don't eat soup for breakfast. What a ridiculous rule. And we can eat chicken but definitely not parrots. Tell this to hawks. And these rules influence our personalities a lot. Reading Eating Animals will help you understand more about your eating habits and food culture in your family. You are going to plunge into the world where animals live. The journey will be disillusioning since some facts reveal the shameful behavior of people growing animals for food. You will more likely have an urge to become a vegetarian and help animals in other ways, which is good because they need human support now more than ever. Owning a pet reveals that each animal has a personality. What about our attitudes towards animals? It is also transmitted from our parents to us and then to our kids, and so on. Foer's grandmother and mother feared dogs, and the author took a leaf from them. He freaked out every time a dog would run in the park or even into his friends' houses. Naturally, he didn't even consider himself as a person who would one day adopt a dog. But then he saw George, his future beloved puppy, who was sleeping on 7th Avenue. At first, he couldn't even feed her from the palm. Later, Foer even let the dog lick his face. From then on, he was a typical dog lover who would go crazy when seeing a wagging tail. Those who own a pet might have noticed that their pets have more than basic needs and instincts, like safety and food. Animals have personalities, which makes them even closer to people. Foer realized that George had her own perspective of the world and even human-like emotions. And considering his philosophical and practical intentions to embrace vegetarianism, the author clearly understood that he wouldn't eat his or any other dog. But why would he consume other animals' meat? And why didn't people in some countries like China and South Korea feel guilty about eating dogs for medical purposes? Each country has a unique cultural background that affects the locals' food choices. But people can also be influenced by family, environment, social norms, and ethics. Unfortunately, the latter doesn't lead the list of factors that form our relationship with food. Many famous people changed their minds about eating meat and became vegetarians, like Kafka, a German-speaking writer in the 20th century. Shame was the word that fully described his attitude to eating animals. Once, Kafka was visiting a Berlin aquarium and started speaking with the fish. He said that he could finally look at them without remorse because he stopped consuming them. When people feel shame, they realize that they gave up responsibility towards somebody or something for instant pleasure. Shame doesn't allow us to forget something important about the world. In Kafka's case, fish have been a symbol of forgetting because people don't usually think about marine creatures as much as farm animals in terms of saving their lives. Inspiration to research meat production. Kids and their straightforwardness awaken shame in parents by asking uncomfortable questions. Adults then have to find reasonable answers that won't confuse their children or make them think that their parents are bad people. Kids' favorite questions usually start with, why? In terms of eating meat, a child can ask, why do we eat chicken but not dogs? From a child's perspective, chicken and dog don't have much difference. They are living creatures that feel pain and, naturally, don't want to be eaten. How can we reply to this question without making ourselves cruel people? With this in mind, Foer decided to obtain as much information as possible not to feel ashamed and make his child a better and more understanding person. To start explaining anything about our culture of eating animals, the author needed to draw a line between an animal and a human being. It is hard to know what an animal feels, and we can only rely on our experience to guess their perception of different situations. For instance, imagine that you have a cat, and you need to travel somewhere for a week. Your pet will have all the food and water that it needs, but it will be alone. You may ask yourself whether it will feel lonely, suffering from your absence or not. Cruelty is the word that usually comes to mind when researching how our food gets to our plates. People created the term, bycatch, meaning some marine creatures are trapped in a fishing net by chance. In reality, it's not an accidental phenomenon because the nets are created and placed in a way that more sea dwellers get trapped. As it turns out, to consume 1 pound of trawled shrimp, people sacrifice the lives of 26 pounds of other marine creatures. The animals get into the net, die, and then are thrown away into the sea or ocean. We don't even use these 26 pounds for food or other goals. So, the author felt that while eating a plate with 5 shrimp on it, he should think about all the animals killed just like that for catching and serving him the shrimp. Did you know? The term anthropodenial means that a person ignores the experiential similarities between animals and humans, breaking into the farm and what secrets it keeps. With an anonymous animal activist named C, Foer sneaked into a turkey farm at night. At first glance, the birds seemed happy, warmed by artificial light in the barracks. But then the author recognized numerous dead turkeys lying near the living ones, with scars, wounds, and exhaustion. He saw how C cut the neck of one dying turkey to rescue it from more pain. C used to work in a poultry plant as the person who killed the animals that survived the mechanical throat slitter. She recalled how she first witnessed the adverse conditions in which the chickens lived. Their cages were too small for them to move freely, and they didn't get an opportunity to walk outside the barracks. That's when she understood that death was their liberation from the tortures of such life. It all started with domestication, a co-evolutionary process that helped humans and some kinds of animals survive. Our ancestors didn't force animals into becoming domestic. Wildlife was full of hardships, and it was beneficial for certain species to join people who provided care and safety in exchange for milk, eggs, and meat. At that time, animals had a chance to live longer with humans than die much earlier in the woods. This was a fair deal until modern times. With the development of farming and population growth, people realized that it would be more profitable to produce more meat, providing less feed to the animals. Considering chickens, they decided to grow bigger ones, like broilers. They reduced the bird's life cycle from years to 6 weeks, allowing them to generate more revenue for less investment. In 1946, people turned to genetics to create the chickens we consume nowadays. The bird's weight increased by 65%, but they became weaker, so the farmers decided to provide them with drugs to make chickens healthier. All in all, humans switched to growing only 2 types of chickens: those with more meat and those who laid more eggs. Animals lost their individualities for people and transformed into just food for the sake of cheapness. The danger of pandemics caused by farming. Considering how business people neglect to provide proper conditions to the birds they grow, chickens' health is far from satisfactory. They are often contaminated with such bacteria as Salmonella are so weak that their bodies cannot resist even minor infections. Instead of improving their treatment, they are force-fed with different drugs, especially antibiotics. It would be understandable in cases when a chicken is infected, and the pills are given when the animal is struggling with a disease. However, farmers feed chickens with antibiotics non-therapeutically, meaning that they give drugs to animals that aren't even sick yet. What's wrong with that, you may ask? Disease prevention sounds good if you protect yourself from the cold by taking vitamins and drinking warm tea. But trying to prevent a virus or bacteria infection by taking drugs will make it even worse. Have you ever heard about the increasing development of drug-resistant bacteria and viruses? When an ill person or animal takes a pill aiming to fight a disease, most germs die. But there are a few stronger microbes that survive the struggle and develop new methods of resistance against the drugs you've already taken. So, next time you get sick with the same illness, taking the same medication won't help you get better. The most frustrating thing is that scientists cannot create dozens of new antibiotics all the time, and we are left unprotected until they discover some new drugs that won't kill human organisms but will kill the germs. Even if you don't directly take antibiotics when not ill, you consume them with the meat of farmed animals. Millions of people are under the threat of a pandemic because germs mutate and become insensible to most of our medications. For example, the pandemic caused by H1N1, known as the swine flu, in 2009 and 2010 originated from a pig farm in North Carolina. Scientists who researched it were overwhelmed and shocked when they discovered that this strain merged the genes of pig, human, and bird viruses. As a result, the pandemic lasted the entire year, considering the complexity of the germ people dealt with. More cruelty and commitment to vegetarianism. Growing cattle is a cruel process as well. The cows are slaughtered when they are only 1 year old. In the past, farmers used to take care of the animals for 4 to 5 years. Temple Grandin, an American scientist, researched another appalling fact concerning the inhumanity of slaughterhouses. She found out that 1 in 4 slaughterhouses didn't kill every animal from one blow. This means that some cows suffered the pain until they died. Such facts about growing animals collected by Foer encouraged him to become a committed vegetarian. Since he wanted his son to consume healthy food, the author researched whether vegetarianism is a proper diet for people. It turned out that vegetarianism can be as healthy as a diet that includes meat. Now that Foer didn't worry about health issues, he could eliminate any connections with the farmhouses. Becoming a vegetarian for the sake of saving animals from atrocious treatment may seem not enough. You may think that one person cannot make much difference by changing their eating habits. Foer believes that this is not the case because you have much more impact on the world than you think. The American National Restaurant Association reported increased demand for vegetarian meals. They suggested that all food service places should expand their menus with at least one vegetarian meal. It appears that a group of people that includes one vegetarian is inclined to choose a place that serves vegetarian food. Vegetarianism is about freedom of choice, and this is connected to American history. The USA used to be called the land of the free partly because its citizens weren't dependent on Europe in terms of food supply. Americans developed their own agriculture and sustained a large population. Nowadays, we need freedom in which food to avoid. Parents' diet choices tremendously influence the food habits of the whole family. Teaching kids from early childhood about food culture will help them make specific ethical choices in the future. The more people abstain from consuming meat, the more chance we have to get rid of unethical, extensive farming. Conclusion. Being a vegetarian is a challenging path because a person should break the food culture established during the last centuries. Most probably, your family members consume meat, and you are used to the turkey on Thanksgiving and veal on the barbecue picnic. In some way, transformation into a person who avoids eating meat can resemble the attempts to quit smoking. Foer switched between vegetarianism and meat consumption many times, similarly to smokers who quit their bad habit many times over their lifespan. But it's always better to try than give up from the very beginning. Eating animals doesn't directly list the advantages of vegetarianism. The author describes what the farming culture looks like, and that's enough for at least starting to consider vegetarian food as a perfect alternative to meat products. It's hard to accept how modern farmers treat birds and cattle. Knowing that such inhumanity is so close to us causes disappointment in our food ethics. However, as Foer argued, you can improve the situation yourself. Since more restaurants and even supermarkets offer vegetarian food due to the increased number of vegetarians around the world, we are definitely heading in the right direction. If this book inspired you to become a vegetarian, don't be afraid of the hardships in acquiring new eating habits. Even if you reduce the amount of meat you usually consume, the animal world will be grateful because the more people turn away from meat production, the fewer chances it has to survive. Try this. Ask your family members about their family's eating habits and attitudes toward food. This can explain a lot about culture and people's choices in life. Try to add more vegetarian food to your diet, like salads, nuts, fruits, and seeds. Track your well-being. You are likely to become more energized because of the vitamins in such meals. Visit an animal shelter and ask what help they need. Usually, they ask for food, hay, building materials, and financial support. Choose the option you can afford to help save our furry and feathery friends. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey. If you've enjoyed our summary, consider reading the full book for a more in-depth exploration. Before you go, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and share this video with someone who could benefit from these insights. Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep growing.